Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Horrible Bosses, starring Jason Bateman, Charlie Day, Jason Sudeikis, Kevin Spacey, Jennifer Aniston, Colin Farrell, Donald Sutherland, and Jamie Foxx, directed by Seth Gordon. Now, before I get into this, I remember going to theaters for this plenty of times because of how much fun it was back in the day. But will it be as fun as I remember? Let's get into the movie and you'll see what I'm probably referring to. We open with Nick Hendricks, played by Jason Bateman, arriving to work 2 minutes late after his start time at 6 o'clock a.m. After as he's getting a promotion to senior vice president of sales at his job, in which he's been working at for 8 years until his boss David Harkin, played by Kevin Spacey, rides on his ass about being 2 minutes late to work as Nick labels David a total fucking asshole as he almost fires the security guard Thomas, but Nix admits he was 2 minutes late while Dale Arbus, played by Charlie Day, is engaged to a woman he loves named Stacy, whom she drops off at work as he works at a dentistry and works at as a dental assistant of an evil, crazy bitch DDS, Dr. Julia Harris, played by Jennifer Aniston, as she loves to fool around with Mr. Anderton, as well as Dale, as she makes him touch her breast. While Kurt Buckman is an associate manager at a chemical company with a boss he loves named Jack Pellet, played by Donald Sutherland, while they work with his dipshit cokehead son named Bobby, played by Colin Farrell, giving them both some shit, while one of the workers, Margie, needed to use the restroom as David forces Nick to drink 18-year-old scotch at 8:15 a.m., which is very fucked up. As Julia sprays water in Dale's privates, as those two are completely fucking unprofessional, while Jack dies of a heart attack, and now Bobby is taking over the company Kurt works at and becomes the boss of Kurt. And I really like the characters as they're relatable and entertaining me throughout as they have drinks, as Dale is a labeled sex offender. And the shots work for an R rated raunchy humor comedy because I haven't liked so many of those in the past like 10, 15 years. Nick goes to a meeting about who becomes vice president of sales while David is acting like a dick as he promotes himself to senior vice president of sales. And he dreams of throwing David out the window, Nick does, as it was a fake out, and Nick complains of how he worked his ass off as he's never gotten to say goodbye to his grandmother Gam Gam. That's what he calls her. I'm not making that bullshit up. And he laughs at Nick about calling his grandmother Gam Gam, and Nick wants to quit now, and David tells Nick how he could take advantage of him, like he will lie to his next employee about how he's a drunk, which is not true because David forced him to have it at 8:15 in the morning. While Bobby has to talk about how Kurt was 3 hours late and talks with him because he was at the funeral of his father about keeping money to not give to hospitals and fire fat people or the crippled. And these motherfuckers are horrible, like the title of this movie implies. And in the unrated version, Kurt. And yes, I watched this movie theatrically and the unrated version, the totally inappropriate version. Kurt is forced to talk to the crippled Hank to fire him, and Bobby blames Kurt for the situation as people are hating on Kurt for firing Hank, the crippled, as Julia talks with Dale while half naked, and Julia forces Dale to fuck her before the wedding between him and Stacy, which is funny in the most inappropriate way possible. And there's a reason for the R rating, and I'm usually not the biggest fan of that bullshit, but it works here as these characters are very funny. Even Dale, as Charlie Day comes off the best character in this whole movie. Nick, Dale, and Kurt bump into a friend at the bar named Kenny Sommerfeld, who can't afford drinks after getting fired from a job in New York and asks for a hand job for money and until he gets in trouble with the bar. And they come up with an idea of killing their bosses later in the night as they're drunk, and it leads to the plot of the movie, as it could happen at any job for damn sure. As Stacy is brought in by Julia for her dentist appointment, and Dale gets scared because when she gets knocked out, Julia tries to fuck Dale. I'm not making this up. While Stacy is knocked out, and she threatens him with photos of Dale being unconscious and Julia forcing sex on him and blackmails him, which is super motherfucking illegal, as it's hilarious, but at the same time, super illegal and very inappropriate. Nick, Dale, and Kurt decides to kill their horrible bosses and tries to hire a professional hitman to kill their bosses. And next night comes as they meet at an inn where they ask to pay for the hitman. And Mr. Fantastic, aka Johan Grufford, comes in as a wet workman. And what that means is he urinates on men for money. I'm not making this up. There's such a thing out here, if you can believe it, which has got to be fucking disturbing, by the way. And why the fuck would you hire Mr. Fantastic from Fantastic Four for a nothing role while Kurt calls his car service named Atmanad, aka Gregory, to look for a place where criminals hang out at? And they go to a bar filled with criminals, and Kurt offends an African American man who's the owner of the bar. And I'm so far pretty entertained. They meet Dean Motherfucker Jones. I'm not making this up. That's really his name, played by Jamie Foxx. And the way he describes how Caucasians say motherfucker and then African American people calling him motherfucker, which it made me laugh so goddamn hard in the unrated version. I can't even help that. As he explains it in the unrated version, as we see how his mother gave him the name Motherfucker Jones, and that name makes me laugh so motherfucking hard, it's hilarious. As the bosses are having a good time partying in his office. One partying in his office as one creates his own giant office, and one has sex with their employees as they meet with Motherfucker Jones and give him $5,000 in a briefcase. And he becomes their murder consultant and advises how to be smart and accidentally kill their bosses. And kill each other's bosses as they bring up an Alfred Hitchcock movie versus a Danny DeVito movie, which have the same similar plot. I forget the name of the movies off the top of my head, but... And they start their plan as David sends Nick home early because he pretends to vomit. And the dialogue just cracks me the fuck up. They wait outside of Bobby's house until he leaves the house, going too fast, too furious. And they get except for Dale, as that was meant to be comedic, as that they enter into Bobby's house to collect some intel, meaning intelligence, until Dale drops a shitload of cocaine as he and Nick clean up the mess by collecting it as vacuuming it, while Kurt puts his toothbrush, flosser, and razor up his asshole. And the problem with that is DNA will be collected by the cops, and Kurt steals a cell phone, and Dale talks about running things by him, and they say it was a waste of time, and they get to David's house, and Dale becomes the lookout and break and enter the house to look for intel until Dale throws a sandwich bag while singing songs versus playing Angry Birds. So very 2010s, I'll say. While David comes up to the car and has an allergic reaction to peanuts, and Dale, which is a real allergy, by the way, and Dale gets David's needle, stabbing him 6 times as his wife gets home and sees Dale saves David's life as Nick and Kurt leave the house, as Kurt leaves Bobby's phone behind before they get inside, and Dale drives away, picks them up, which was fucking hysterical. Nick and Kurt learn from Dale David is allergic to peanuts, and they go to a store to pick up some rat attacks, as well as a shitload of peanuts, as Dale gets a shitload of peanuts, while Nick tries to poison Bobby. Dale plants peanuts behind in David's bathtub, while Kurt tries to learn some things from Julia, which is an interesting choice. David learns his wife, who believes she's been fucking every guy in the neighborhood, and is led to believe his wife had fucked Bobby, and goes over to his house while Dale doesn't want to go to jail, and accidentally killing David while David gets to Bobby's place and shoots him, as he's dead. And Nick tries to leave as he runs a red light, and they meet up at the bar, and Kurt says he had sex with Julia as he eats 3 different kinds of foods that look like a penis. I'm not making this shit up, like bananas, hot dogs, popsicles, you name it. As Nick tells Kurt, David, Bobby, and they David killed Bobby. And they talk about what's next, and they get arrested by a police officer while they yell a caw, which is absolutely hilarious. And in the unrated version, they talk about it in front of people what their plan is, and they get interrogated. And he says he's a drag racer and lie their asses off. As Dale talks their way out, and they learn Kurt put some DNA at the victim's house. And I am having a fun time with this, even though Kurt is kind of obsessed with his asshole, like Dale says in the movie. They go to Motherfucker Jones, and they learn David had to confess he murdered Bobby, as they learn about how Motherfucker Jones spent 10 years in jail for video piracy, as he filmed the movie Snow Falling on Cedars, as he never murdered anyone, as that was his crime. And they go to David's house while his surprise birthday party happens, and Kurt meets Rhonda, who happens to be David's wife, and Nick and Dale go to his office while Kurt has sex with Rhonda. And Nick and Dale learn from David he killed Bobby, as Kurt wasn't there, and David is not stupid enough to confess with a tape recorder, as he gets his gun and they see he had sex with Rhonda, and they decide to drive away and think about moving away from America, while Julia calls at the wrong time. And yeah, Dale goes explicit with their sexual intercourse, while David runs their car and continuously bump into them on purpose. And eventually Dale hangs up on Julia as they call Gregory, and he stops the car and gets crushed one more time by David. And Gregory hears David confessing, and he decides to shoot himself in the leg and cleans his DNA. And the cops arrive as he gives the tape recorder to Dale and spots the tape recorder in Kurt's pocket after the cops arrive. But nothing is recorded about David's confession, as Gregory plays the confession of David, and the cops got their bad guy, as David learned Kurt fucked his wife, and David goes to jail while Nick gets a new boss named Lou, as he gets a new job as the vice president, as his boss is the CEO, Louis Sherman, as he's labeled a twisted old fuck, while Kurt congratulates Marjorie on not only the promotion and brings up her baby as she's not pregnant, which very dangerous to admit. You got to be careful about that, folks. And Julia plays around with a patient's dick as it's Kenny Sommerfeld, and he laughs with Dale and Motherfucker Jones, filming everything as we roll credits with bloopers, and the climax was hilarious in the most entertaining way possible. And was I entertained by the movie? Let's talk about it and my rating. I'll give this movie a 7.9 out of 10. This is so entertaining as the plot is fun and the writing and the dialogue, it cracks me the fuck up. While I really like and relate with the characters as they're really funny, including Dale, as he's the best character in this whole movie. And this is a very, very funny movie and very entertaining to me from start to finish. And I know there's some things in there I didn't bring up in the review. The movie went by so quick, as the actors are cast in the right roles. And my favorite character, other than Dale, is Jamie Foxx playing Motherfucker Jones, as he cracked me up this entire motherfucking movie. As I laughed my ass off twice in this movie, as it was hysterical in the unrated cut, I'll say. I had a fun, entertaining time with the movie, as it was entertaining, and I can follow every single thing going on, even though my notes went by a little not like the way it should. As this one is one of the greatest comedies, in my opinion, as this is a recommendation, as I was entertained by it at the end of the day. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Horrible Bosses 2, and we'll see how good or bad or worse if it gets there. Until then, caw-caw, 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 caw-caw.